Sunday recap, week 18, coming to you on a Monday morning. We figure if the NFL can play games on a Wednesday, we could do Sunday recap on a Monday. And Michael Merlo, Kevin Bunk coming to you every week, typically 7:30 on a Sunday night. Conflict yesterday. Couldn't make it work. We're here this morning. Same deal, same conversations, including Sunday Night Football now. But, Mike, big day for our Vikes yesterday. You can start.
It feels great. I think a lot of people – I think you should have been rooting for the Vikings yesterday, right? Because it sets up just an unbelievable Sunday night football game. Lions-Vikings coming up on next Sunday night. I think Mike Tirico said it's the first game ever. It's going to be like the biggest game basically ever, because the two teams, they've never had two teams have win totals equal as high as 27, which is the Vikings and the Lions. So essentially, it's like the greatest game ever, basically, statistically, heading into a football game, right? The two winningest teams to ever play in a regular season game are going to play each other. So that's exciting. But, Kevin, I watched that game, and you could argue with me. Let's say I've never watched football before, right? I've never watched football. And you put Sam Darnold and Jordan Love in front of you, right? You don't know any of the backstories. Right? Because most people will tell you, oh, Jordan Love's better. Jordan Love's the future, this and that. If you put those two guys in front of me yesterday, and I've never watched football in my life, one thing I could confidently say to you, oh, Sam Darnold was the better guy. And Sam Darnold's been the better guy all year. Like the Sam Darnold conversation, it's over. That's it. It's done. They have to pay him. They have to give him a long-term contract. It's done.
It is. You can't have what is going to be the best season in franchise history. I'd be shocked if they weren't in the second round of the playoffs, whether it's because they get the bye or because they won a game in round one. They are such a good team, Mike. And you see the way Darnold comes into the locker room after the game. Everybody saw that video yesterday. You see the way Kevin O'Connell is interacting with Darnold throughout a game, throughout the whole season. They love him. And you can't just get rid of that player, whether he's the quarterback, linebacker, defensive tackle. When a player is that beloved in the locker room and contributing to winning as much as Darnold is, you just can't get rid of him. There's no rational way to do it. I think it's a conversation for another day, but we've touched on it all year. If Darnold was to go back, he should take a little bit of a pay cut. He should take a bit of a discount, because look at where his career is right now, where it could have been if he didn't end up in this spot. Kevin O'Connell, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hockenson, everything involved is a huge part of Darnold's revival here. And you should want to be there for a few more seasons and then get another massive payday if things continue to work out. Then you can go somewhere else. But you have a chance to try and win a Super Bowl, and dare I even say an MVP with the Minnesota Vikings the next few years, because you look through the NFC, you mentioned Jordan Love. There's not a quarterback in the NFC better this year.
No, there's not. You're 100% correct. He's been better than Goff. He's been better than Stafford statistically. Now, if I need to win a game, I'll probably take Stafford.
Yeah.
But either way, and then we'll move off of Darnold for 1 second. We talk about the team, right? I think a lot of people thought, oh, the Vikings might be a little fraudy. And you have the Packers, who have played really well, and they're coming into a situation where they could use the win. And Jordan Love, we know about Toyota-thon. He plays great late in the season. And the team, the defense in general, stepped up against another very good opponent. And I think now we have to, I didn't have this, but if you had the fraud tag next to what the Minnesota Vikings are, I think you absolutely have to take that away after, the score was close, but it was a dominant win. It was 27-10 late in that game. They let the Packers come back into it, but I thought they dominated most of that game.
They did. And listen, the Packers are good still. So to win by 4, it's not really a knock on you to sweep the season series. I thought some of the play calling towards the end of the game by O'Connell was a little aggressive, but they win, so whatever.
Yeah.
I would have ran some clock down, created some easier behind the line of scrimmage passes at the end of that game. They were still running some of those complex, first quarter, second quarter plays down the stretch in the fourth. But this is a great win. And on the other side of things, the Packers, they kind of feel a year away still. I think that coming into this season, they were one of those, if you watch football, they could win the Super Bowl. And listen, they could still make noise in the NFC. They could still get there. But it does feel like they are not in that tier of Detroit, Philadelphia, Minnesota right now. I don't even think they're better than LA. So they do kind of need another year here to figure things out. I could see them losing to Tampa Bay in a playoff game, even though they wouldn't play them. I could see them losing to Tampa Bay in a playoff game. That's just where I'm at with Green Bay.
Well, they're very young. That's the thing. And then when you compare the rosters of Detroit and Minnesota and Philadelphia, it's like those are completely loaded rosters with, Hall of Fame players and just legitimate players. And then you have Green Bay, who's got a lot of young guys and a really good quarterback, but he's young. Maybe the best coach of the bunch, second best coach of the bunch. But they're just, that's how I feel too. They're probably a year away, but it wouldn't shock you like we saw last season where a team got hot. They were a young team still last year. They got hot and they almost went on a run and probably should have been in the NFC Championship game. But I think right now their first round matchup would be Philadelphia. I mean, that's what it seems like it's going to be. And that is a pretty tough draw. That's a pretty tough draw there.
You also, you have to look at it next week. Washington, who clinched that spot last night, they can't rest guys next week. I don't think, maybe you rest Daniels because he took a little shot at the end of the game last night. We'll talk about the Falcons Commanders game, but you do not want to play at Philadelphia. You want at LA because you want that indoor game where you're not at a severe road disadvantage with the crowd. Philly is just a real death sentence in round one, I think.
Now, what if both teams win? Does Washington get it?
Washington has it right now. They have the tiebreaker. So if they win next week, they play LA.
Wow.
And Green Bay, Philly would happen. Now, Green Bay, I think, can beat Philly, but 25% chance I'd give them. So
that's not the matchup you want. I think
At Philly, Mike, round one, I don't care if it's Detroit, Minnesota, LA, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, Green Bay, it's Philly. It's got to be Philly 70, 75% of the time to win that game.
Yeah, and for Philly, too, that's a tough draw, though. Philly would much rather play Washington. Yeah,
you'd rather play Washington. You'd rather play the NFC South winner than anyone in this bracket. So it's a tough. The NFC is both playoff pictures are really difficult. I actually think the NFC might be tougher to get through than the AFC. Well, I think so too. AFC, the top three in the AFC are frightening. Where I don't think the top three in the but you know what though? I don't think the Rams. I think the Rams bring it down. I think the 3 seed in the NFC brings down the top of it. But the 6, 7 seeds, Chargers, Broncos are probably not winning a game here.
Yeah, but look at the top. We're talking about the top 3 seeds, but really, look at the top 3 teams. Right, you'd have Philadelphia, Detroit, Minnesota, even though one of them is going to be the 5. Those 3, that probably, not with the historical greatness of the Chiefs, Bills, and Ravens, but this season alone, those top 3, that's a tough top 3 to go through in just one season.
Maybe I'm crazy too. I think if Tampa Bay and Houston played, Tampa Bay might beat them by 25 points.
If Tampa Bay and Houston played.
I think Houston sucks.
Houston stinks.
Houston's terrible. Houston's yeah, but then you look at the 5, 6, 4 through 7 in the AFC is weak. Houston, Pittsburgh, LA, Broncos, that's a weak 4 through 7 in comparison to the NFC. So yeah, the NFC is a much tougher bracket to get through because there's not a team out of 7 that will stun us with a win. There's not a team out of 7 that will stun us with an NFC championship game, I don't think.
Gun to your head right now, who gets to the Super Bowl in the NFC?
In the NFC, I think it's going to be I think Detroit's going to find the way.
I think it's going to be Philadelphia.
And I think Detroit's going to find the way, and I don't think they're going to win next week.
Really? Yeah, I think Minnesota's winning next week too. But I think
what I worry about with Philadelphia,
I think Detroit's done.
Is the day Minnesota I think it's going to be Detroit or Minnesota. I'll say that. So I don't think it's going to be Philly because the day a team like Minnesota gets through and stops your run game, I think you're totally cooked in Philly.
So you think Detroit could go to Philly and beat them?
Yeah, I do. And I think Minnesota can also. But the problem for Philly, obviously, is they're going to have to go to one of them. So that's an issue. But yeah, I think, I don't know. There's something about Philly that's just not, that gut feeling when I don't really have a rational, logical, this is their flaw.
Yeah, you don't trust the coach. Maybe you don't trust the quarterback, but you can't say it because
Yeah,
statistically it looks good.
it looks good. I shouldn't feel that way, but I do, and I think Minnesota could definitely make the run to the Super Bowl. I think if you are at the point, and I know you're not, but if you're at the point where you're just saying, no, Sam Darnold, this team's not going to the Super Bowl this year, you're just being ignorant because they are really good.
No, they're Darnold is playing at an MVP level. There's no doubt about it.
They need home field advantage, though. They need it.
To get to the Super Bowl.
Both teams do. So forget my Detroit thing. Both teams need home field. Whoever wins next week, I think, is going to go to the Super Bowl. Whoever gets the 1 seed in the NFC.
And how about, I don't even know if I want to say this about Philly because they're dealing with injury. My friend who's an Eagles fan brought this up last night. He goes, this is going to be a conversation now. Hurts is going to probably sit again this week, right? Hurts hasn't played in 3 weeks. Does that have any effect on the Eagles?
I'm worried about the Hurts injury.
Okay.
Because you can't go almost a month without playing, and then you got to walk in and play
Green Bay.
If
it's Washington, I feel a little bit better.
Because Green Bay, I like the Eagles' defense a lot. I think the Eagles probably the best defense in the conference, but Green Bay is going to put up points. Green Bay's putting up 21 points at least. So Hurts has to respond and put up points back. And if you haven't played in a month, I'm a little worried about his ability to do so.
Well, even if Hurts has played, Green Bay has the quarterback advantage. Green Bay has the advantage at head coach.
They do.
They don't have the advantage on defense. They don't have the advantage weapons-wise. But at coach and quarterback, they have a pretty decent advantage over Philadelphia.
This is definitely a 7-2 matchup that's scary. You're right. Philly gets a tough draw here. As much as Green Bay gets a tough draw for winning 12 games this season, probably, this is a really brutal draw for Philly as a 2 seed because usually this 7 seed has been a 9-game winner. You're going to see that in the AFC where it's a 9 or 10-game winner. It feels like 10 gets you in, right? This year it is not 10 gets you in the NFC. It's 12 gets you in.
And Washington goes to LA and loses. I like LA.
Yeah.
I think if it was Green Bay, LA, I'd probably pick Green Bay, but Washington, LA, I have LA in the second round.
I would just probably take LA in any spot there. I like LA just to win.
I don't think I would. I think Green Bay would go there and win.
But I agree with you that it's definitely tilted. Green Bay has more of a coin flip chance than Washington does.
Yeah.
To win. What about in last night's game? Sorry to cut you off. In last night's game with Washington and Atlanta, what the hell was that clock management in the game by Atlanta?
I saw this on Twitter. How many coaches don't know how to manage the clock? I don't get it. You're 2 timeouts.
That's what is different about the elite guys because when's the last time, Mike, that you watched the Chiefs game and said, God, Andy Reid with this, what is he doing with the clock right now? You never say that. Sean McVay, you never say that. That's what separates these elite coaches. Even Mike Tomlin, you don't say that about his clock management and his game management. So that's where Sean McDermott's come up short a few times in the postseason with different clock management, game management situations late. But Raheem Morris, you had a play end at 32 seconds. You have 2 timeouts left. You got to get about another 35 yards here. And you let 15 seconds run off the clock. You got, by the end of the play, there's 13 seconds on the clock. And you end up missing a field goal, 56-yard field goal, short by 7 yards. You got to know the kicker can't reach.
Right.
I mean, Riley Patterson
get a backup kicker in there.
Exactly. And Koo couldn't have reached from 56 probably either. So,
and Tirico mentioned with the first field goal, he said he looked terrible in warmups. He literally said, and so I'm questioning a 47-yarder going up. I think it was him. I'm pretty sure it was him.
And so for Tirico to know that and Morris not to be thinking that the whole time, what are you doing? You just lost yourself a playoff spot. Who does Tampa Bay play next week? Carolina? Oh no, they play. It's the Saints.
But they don't control their own destiny.
Tampa Bay does.
Tampa Bay wins, they're in.
Yeah, and they play the Saints next week.
Right.
So that's wrapped.
No, that's bad. That's really bad because also think about it. They called the timeout on a potential delay of game, correct?
Yeah.
So you're not essentially without that delay of game, which could have been stopped with a timeout after the big play, the first play. You probably are going to overtime with 1 timeout left still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's the point?
No, you're right.
And
I feel like on Saturday night, Sean Payton botched the clock too in overtime because he could have just played for a tie and he didn't.
I thought the Bengals misplayed that.
Oh, well, the Bengals at the end of regulation, that was a disaster too. Yeah, both I'm just thinking of the Broncos because they lost. But both, you're right, man. That Bengals at the end, you run Brown, who I haven't seen what his injury was, if it was anything serious. Did you see?
It was an ankle.
Ankle? Because it looked on the field like he might have had a season ender because it wasn't total contact injury. But he dives down to 1, gets hurt, and then you just sneak it in. Clearly, there was a conscious effort to run the clock out on the play before. Why did that stop you with a minute 25 left or a minute 31 left, whatever it was? Why didn't you just, even if you want to score the touchdown, you take a knee on the first play, and then you go for
Denver had one timeout, so you would have to make them waste one timeout.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm cool with let's either one of two things happen. Denver's getting the ball back. We're going to score a touchdown. Denver's getting the ball back, down 7 with no timeouts, or maybe we run the risk of Denver's getting the ball back with 40 seconds ran off the clock, and we had to kick a field goal, but there's only 40 seconds left for them to score,
and then
they have one timeout. Or you still score the touchdown, and there's 40 seconds on the clock.
It was bad. I don't know what he was doing.
Both
I really don't.
Blew that game. I mean, Taylor stinks.
Taylor does stink. That was one of those moments where it's like, and I've questioned Zach Taylor, and Saturday night was one of those moments where I'm sitting there like, yeah, this guy doesn't add much here for me.
No.
Where I'm like, I got to keep him.
Adds absolutely nothing. Maybe you could say he has an offensive system that his players thrive in. So you could say that. But
is it his? And is it really him? Like you have Joe Burrow.
Burrow. Of course. But that's the only possible redeeming quality I can give him. Because I can't say that he's holding his players back on offense. Because he's not.
Yeah.
But, if you or I were coaching, is the production the same? It could be.
It could definitely be.
You have the best receiver in the league. You have the best passing quarterback in the league. You have your second receiver is like the 11th or 12th best receiver in the league. You have a pretty good offensive line. Now, not great, average. Good tight end in Gesicki. Great pass-catching tight end in Gesicki, I actually think. And good running backs. So, is production the same?
Their defense stinks. Their defense stinks. And I'll tell you, coming into the year, the offensive line was good, and they can run the ball. They can't protect Burrow to save their lives.
No. You know what stinks, though, for me, is I think they could go in and beat Buffalo in round 1. And here's why. They're not going to get in. We both are going to agree here. The Broncos will just take care of business against the Chiefs next week. Mm. But if Cincinnati got in, and then Cincinnati would need Miami to lose to the Jets, Tua is not playing, so it's not impossible, but it's probably unlikely. The Bengals could go into Buffalo and win that because they're going to put up points. And look at the last month of Buffalo's schedule. Like, not to take anything away from Allen and the Bills, but you're playing Patriots, Jets, Patriots the last 3 weeks, and now you have to play a team that's going to put up 24 plus on you no matter what. I guarantee Cincinnati would go in and put up 24 plus. And maybe Buffalo put up 40 against Cincinnati.
That's the problem.
That's possible. But I just think after going from such a non-competitive month of the schedule, you have the MVP, everything feels great, you could come in and get smacked in the face by the only quarterback in a league that is actually better.
That's the only problem I have is if they were to play that game, Josh Allen's putting up 40 points in Buffalo. Like that defense is that bad. This isn't one of those situations where, we know offensively Cincinnati's great and they could beat anybody offensively, but their defense is such a detriment. It is that bad that I would not trust them in any single game. I think they'll beat the Steelers on Saturday night, but I don't even trust them to win that game fully because of how bad their defense is. And Pittsburgh's due here. So, again, I'll pick Cincinnati. I'll bet Cincinnati in the game on Saturday night. But to trust 100% confidence in that defense is impossible.
It is. And it's just more so of maybe Buffalo lays the egg after a month. But that you just don't see Denver or Miami going into Buffalo and winning in round 1.
No, of course not.
I could see them struggling with Denver, but not losing.
Absolutely not.
Denver will bring in a tough defense in comparison to what you've seen the last 6 weeks of the season. Last 6 weeks for Buffalo have been, as far as what their offense has had to face defensively as opposition, has been a joke. And they faced some good teams, Rams, but the Rams defense was abysmal in that game. The Lions defense sucks. Patriots times 2, and then Jets, enough said there. So But Buffalo will win that round one. I just would like to see Burrow in that game. Whatever.
Yeah, of course. So does
is what it is. So yesterday we also had that Indianapolis Giants game, the Miami Cleveland game that had playoff implications. Do you have anything else on Denver, Cincinnati, or Atlanta, Washington?
Atlanta, Washington, I did want to talk about.
Yeah, let's go to Atlanta, Washington.
That was a great game.
That was a really good game.
That was a great game. Penix, you watch the two guys, and yes, of course, Daniels has played all season long, but you watch the two guys and you sit there and you say, well, they're both rookies. And Penix made some plays, but then he also made some plays where, like, you could, it's funny when you're watching a football game and you could clearly say, oh, this guy's in his first year.
Penix looked like a rookie. He looked like a typical rookie yesterday.
But he made some plays. He's got an arm. The one thing we said coming out of college, that arm is tough to replicate. There are not many arms like the arm of Michael Penix. And he makes a couple of throws, whether they get completed or not, where you're like, oh, crap. Like, that's a serious NFL arm.
Yeah, and he missed a few throws yesterday up the sidelines all over the game. So accuracy, timing, something he's got to work on a little bit. But the throw to Pitts up the middle was obviously Penix's moment. It was Pitts' first big moment in the NFL too. And you just later. Yeah, he just but somehow he's the same age as Michael Penix. But you just saw it. You saw why he got drafted 8th. You saw why they're excited about him. And Mike, it's really crazy seeing Kirk Cousins on the sideline, like talking to Penix, mentoring him after the contract he got this offseason. In the heat of a playoff race, you're looking to control your own destiny. You have to win those last 2 games to control your fate on the season. And you have Penix playing, who didn't play all year, who didn't get you to this point, and he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. Like, it's crazy that was the situation last night. Then you see Kirk, and you're just thinking, what a waste of money this was, because you probably could have gotten the same results with a guy on a 1 for 12 or a 1 for 15 type of veteran. I mean, you could have gotten better results if you signed Sam Darnold. I guarantee you that. But it's just weird in Atlanta, and I don't want to see them in the playoffs at all.
No, I don't want to either. Their defense had actually come alive the past few weeks too, but they weren't good enough last night against Daniels, who was unbelievable. Yep. But yeah, it's really interesting. You're right. You're probably 8-8 with some sort of bridge quarterback and then handing it off to Penix at some point. I think we both agreed Penix wasn't I wouldn't have started Penix to start the year. Mm-hmm. I would have sat him for at least half the season.
Yep.
But Kirk's a professional, and Kirk's sitting there doing his job, and he seems like an unbelievable guy. So good for Kirk being able to do that. He's also $90 million richer, so I don't really feel bad for him on the sideline. But it did take one of the worst stretches of football from a starting caliber quarterback we've seen in a while to go. What was it? 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions over a month span, or no touchdowns and 9 interceptions over that span. So, I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we're rushing to go to Penix. I mean, he was taking them out of games. He was that bad.
Yep. And you have to then think the other side of the coin. What if they just didn't go with Cousins? Do you have that horrible month, and maybe you're 10-7 right now, or 10-6 right now? Maybe you have the division locked up because you didn't have that month of play. Tough one for Atlanta last night, though. You got to feel good about Washington and Quinn and everything that's gone into this season, because while they do feel like the worst team in the NFC playoffs, they do feel like the easiest first-round exit. It's the first year of your quarterback, first year of your coach, first year of your owner. The vibes here, I mean, imagine being a diehard Washington fan after everything you've had to go through the last few decades with Snyder and the coaches and the quarterbacks. You finally feel like you have something here that, even if it's not great, it's just sustainable.
It's great. It's probably great.
Yeah.
Because the kid is unbelievable. Now,
he is.
I do worry not to, just rain on the parade, because I am not a fan of the Washington Commanders and what they're going to do to the NFC East for a very long time. I am not a fan of that, but I do worry that, and you talked about it early before, he took a big shot last night. Took a lot of shots last night. He ran a lot, and that is not sustainable. We talked about that early with Lamar. What happened? Lamar became arguably the best pocket passer in the league, top 3 pocket passer, and it's not that Daniels has the ability. I think Daniels has more of an ability than Jackson had coming out of college as a pocket passer.
Yeah.
He's going to be great, but he can't run the football the way he has all season long. That's not sustainable. That won't happen. I think it's a first-year thing. They don't have enough wide receivers. You're telling me Terry McLaurin's the number one wide receiver. You can't get locked up. I know A.J. Terrell's great. You can't get locked up to go 1 for 5 last night, in a big game on prime time. And the team still wins the game. Shows your importance there, Terry. Good job. I know a lot of people that got screwed over by him in fantasy. Not me. I was out. I was dead early last night.
Yeah.
But that's crazy. 1 for 5. You're the number one wide receiver, prime time. You get locked up like that. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, Terry would have destroyed me in fantasy. He was one of my big ride or die guys this year.
Yeah.
In my leagues, I got 16 guys in my league, so that it's not like you get this great bench. And I drafted McCaffrey first, so McLaurin was a total saving grace for my season. So I would have.
He had a lot of tutties, so he did step up for a little bit. He's inconsistent though. That's his problem. He's very inconsistent.
Yeah, and he's in that second tier of guys. There's certain players that you watch on Sunday, and they're good. Terry McLaurin's one of them. I think Garrett Wilson's one of them. A few other guys that I was thinking of yesterday. T. Higgins is one of them. But then you watch them and you say, man, these guys are really good. But then you turn on Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I think Malik Neighbors yesterday was awesome.
Yeah.
You turn on the games of those players, St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, and you're just like, this is a different group of playmakers that it's not a knock on the guys in that tier below it. Those are really good receivers, low-end number ones, maybe more in that Devontae Smith category than they are in that higher-end wide receiver one category, but they're just not as good. And McLaurin's not at that elite game-changing playmaker level. He's a really good receiver, really good veteran receiver, and that was great for Jaden Daniels as a rookie. You saw him lean on him all year long. But Washington does need another playmaker or two. I think they should try to turn to the draft for one here. There's such good guys at the end of the first round. That seems like a position where I'm emphasizing.
I think you just named 2 guys, though, that are absolutely those game-changing kind of players.
Who?
I think T is one of them, and I think Garrett Wilson is one of them. I don't think they're at the top of the list, but they're certainly at the bottom of, wow, that's a number one wide receiver.
They're significantly better than Terry McLaurin?
I do, yes.
Okay. That's fair. I think that they're better. I don't know how much better. I'm not high on either of them in the way I'm high on the other guys I named. But that's fine. I mean,
they're at the bottom of that list, though. The bottom of that top tier.
All things considered, they're top 12 players in the league at probably the 3rd or 4th most valuable position right now.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good nod on them.
You know what? Conversation's going to be fun all off season because there are probably a handful of teams that he instantly makes very much better.
Yeah.
T. Higgins, where does he go?
And Garrett Wilson.
He's not leaving.
I think he is. At least I think if we're talking about off-season conversations, he's requesting a trade.
It's a conversation.
And it's going to become a conversation because you're going to have one of 2 endings this offseason, and it has to come this offseason, is he's getting an extension from the Jets, and it's going to be a big money extension and a little bit of an overpay based on his production already, which is fine because his production or lack thereof is not his fault.
Yeah.
Or he's going to get traded for probably a first-round pick. And that's going to be a conversation, whether it happens or not. It's going to be a conversation this offseason with, like, remember that offseason of Debo, DK, AJ Brown, and only AJ Brown got traded. You're going to have T. Higgins. You're going to have Tyreek Hill this offseason. I think you're going to have Garrett Wilson this offseason as guys that people are just conversing about as playmakers that could get moved.
And even with the Tyreek Hill, it was obvious he could have gotten traded, but like for me, I was still shocked when he got traded. So it could also be one of those situations with Wilson where, you don't really know the conversations are happening, and then you hear the day of the conversations are happening, and then he's traded that day. Could be that. I don't know. But
I think he'll get traded because now he's in a position where the general manager that's here did not draft him.
Yeah, but I also think that general manager that comes in, one of his first jobs, of course, is figure out who your head coach is and who your quarterback is. But it's also going to be, hey, we have a potential superstar on the outside here. He's a young kid, and he's due for a contract, and he's unhappy. Let's see what we could do to make him happy. You're not going to completely cater to him, but let's calm him down and let's, kind of ease his thoughts about where this organization is going. Because clearly, that game yesterday was just, you want to talk about how to not play football and how to not act on a football field. that is the game right there. They show the Jets. They got Michael Clemens. That was hysterical.
That was
hysterical.
Connor Rogers does Jets postgame on SNY with Mark Scott and Willie Colon and Steve Gelbs.
Steve Gelbs, my guy.
Steve Gelbs is awesome. Connor Rogers says on it, he says, the way that this organization allows Michael Clemens to act on a football field is shameful. And it's so spot on because, first of all, he sucked. Second of all, that's the most Jets play of all time.
Yep.
Down 40-0, whatever it was at the time, diving on top of the huddle of players, the scrum of players. There's such a laughing stock is not even appropriate anymore.
They should fire Ulbrich just for the look of it. It does absolutely nothing, but he does not deserve to coach the next game.
I was saying, how great is it going to be because Tony Romo, who sucks at broadcasting, said yesterday, he's like, and Jeff Ulbricht's going to have a chance to plead his case for the job next year. First of all, no, he's not. But how funny is it when you're looking for the coach and the team posts, we've completed the interview with this candidate.
Yeah.
How funny is it going to be when the Jets pop up their courtesy interview for Ulbrich and it says, we've completed our interview for our head coaching vacancy with Jeff Ulbrich.
You think they're even going to do that?
No, but they will.
I don't even think
normal teams don't do that. Normal teams don't do that. The Jets
What does he have to sell? What the hell does that guy have to sell?
And
he should take himself out of it.
If they say, hey, Jeff, we'd love to interview you for the job, he should say, no way in hell am I interviewing for the job. I'm going to coach linebackers in San Francisco. No way I'm going to be here.
It is wild. Oh, my God. And then, yesterday, we had our setup yesterday was Sunday Ticket on one TV and the two locals on the other. We were flipping back and forth. So I did watch a decent amount of the Giants and the Jets yesterday. And the Jets, when the Bills went on that run of scoring, right, where they just didn't stop, and every big play.
So you're talking about all game?
Well, no, really that third quarter-ish.
Yeah,
right?
Third quarter, they scored 21 points in 5.5 minutes.
Right. So there was a big play or a touchdown, and usually when there's a flag called, you're oh, it's on the offense coming back. Every big play also had a penalty on the Jets. Every single one of them was on the Jets. I was like, how is one of these not being called up Buffalo? It's all on NYJ. What a mess. And you hear the news today, they're going to interview Rex for that coaching vacancy.
Did you see the news about their official scheduled interview?
Oh, Ron Rivera, I saw.
Riverboat Ron.
Let's
go. That's not the biggest lock I've ever seen.
What a mess. I think, you know what, Kevin? I think there's a couple of names that make just a ton of sense.
Wait, one of them. You off for 1 second before you go into that.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want to lose the thought. 2024 NFL team penalty statistics.
Oh, God.
Tennessee Titans, second. 125 penalties, 962 yards. New York Jets, first. 131 penalties, 1,099 yards. That is 2 games more of penalty yards than Tennessee. But your thought on Jets coaches?
Yeah, I think Flores got to come. That is freaking crazy. Flores, complete culture change. Let's go. If he would come here.
Complete culture change. Miami was a mess.
Yeah, but that hard-nosed, tough attitude.
Listen.
Oh, you know the perfect guy is, honest to God?
Who?
I heard this on Joe Bedingo's show yesterday, and I've heard this name thrown out there. Aaron Glenn is the perfect guy. Aaron Glenn would be my number one choice.
My number one choice is Vrabel, and if I own the team, I'm saying whoever you want. But Flores, not to overreact to Flores, if they hired Flores, which is a realistic candidate, I would sit here and just say, all right, let's see how it goes. I'm not going to be like, oh my God. Like when they hired Gase, you were just saying, like, what the hell is this? And now, even though I was a Gase truther in Miami, but neither here nor there.
Yeah.
The Flores, you just say, all right, second stint, Tua was a little baby with him, and maybe Flores was in the right. We'll see. Glenn could be a good option. I like the prospect of Glenn bringing one of Johnson's young offensive guys with him if he's able to do that. But I'm usually not like this, but if it's not Vrabel, I just want an offensive coach. I usually don't feel that way, though.
I think this organization's different, and you need the one thing that this organization needs is, just a complete I think culture for the Jets here is more important than, in a lot of cases, it's more important than scheme, an offensive scheme. But in general, like with this organization that's just been beaten and battered and no playoffs in 14 straight years, like get a guy that's going to fix this. And I think Glenn, former player, former Jet, he's interviewed a ton now. I think he makes the most sense.
I do think he'll end up with the Saints for what it's worth.
That's the consensus.
Yeah, I do think I've thought that for almost the entire season since they fired Allen. I've been saying. I think I said it on here the week after they fired Allen. But I do feel like Glenn is a match for the Saints. But the Jets definitely like him a lot. Rich Cimini's documented that pretty in depth, that they loved him when he was with the team as a scout when they were winning 15 years ago. But Vrabel, for me, is my Knicks model. I say the Jets have to follow the Knicks model. And what that is if you just, I agree with you. Culture is more important than any scheme here. Getting a winning culture and managing the game properly and being prepared for Sunday is more important than any system that you could bring in.
Right.
When the Knicks hit rock bottom, was the year of the Zion Williamson, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant. They didn't get any of them. They were the worst team in the league. They had Dave Fizdale was the coach. They fired him. And I think Jim Dolan just said, I've had enough of this team being awful. It's embarrassing. And I'm not going to be involved anymore with the day-to-day operations of the team. He hired Leon Rose because he knew he had a good relationship with Tom Thibodeau and a good relationship with players. And since then, you got Tom Thibodeau, a guy who definitely has his question marks. I think Vrabel has his question marks. He's not this perfect candidate, but he's going to come in and be listened to, be respected, and he knows how to win games.
And he had done it before at a high level.
Exactly. You've seen them compete for spots in the championship, for deep playoff runs, despite never winning one, despite never actually being there. That can't be your goal. I see Jets fans all the time. You can't go with Tyrod Taylor. You can't go with Jameis Winston next year. You can't go with this coach because you want to win a Super Bowl. The goal is always to win the Super Bowl. No, it's not anymore. The goal is no longer to win the Super Bowl. How about 8 games?
Wow, not even the playoffs.
How about 8? How about you're sitting there in week 18 playing a big one for the last spot and you lose? All right, well, you know what? We were right there.
Yeah.
And the last few years, we were done by Halloween. So I'm pumped that we were there first week of January. That's what the goal has. Start setting smaller goals. And I think Mike Vrabel can get you there, but they're not going to get him.
You got to give Vrabel full control.
And I'm cool with that.
And I don't know if I am, but I know the Jets wouldn't do it.
Because he wouldn't be, they wouldn't. He wouldn't be the general manager either. They'd hire one, obviously. But he has final say on the decisions. And then Woody's going to be involved, and his son's going to run the day-to-day of the team. This 11-year-old stupid
It's like
son.
That's the problem with both teams right now. It's that it's not going to change.
No,
because both of these owners, and Mara's a little better than Johnson because at least Mara just comes from a football family, but he still has done a terrible job and he hasn't updated with the times. Like Woody's just a flat-out moron we know more football than Woody Johnson.
Yeah. No,
and he makes decisions. Like that's the biggest problem. And it doesn't change. Like these organizations, they don't. If you have terrible ownership, and they constantly get in the way, like James Dolan. James Dolan's a terrible owner, and what did he do? You just mentioned it. He stepped out of the way, hired Leon. He doesn't get involved anymore. It's done. And the Knicks have been a very good organization for the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Owner doesn't step out of the way. It's going to be the same crap.
Yep, it is. And it's frustrating. And then you go to the Giants yesterday, who, of course, I'm not a pro tank guy. We're going to talk Giants and Colts here. I'm not a pro tank guy. You know that. I think we've spoken about that. But when you're at this point in the season, and it's tough because, Mike, I literally had a flashback to my sadness, the Trevor Lawrence year. Yep. And that year there was a consensus guy. I mean, so this year is, you kind of feel the same, but like you watch the Saturday game.
That was worse.
You watch the Saturday game though, and the college games, and you see Cam Ward. And I think you're starting to say, this guy would be awesome with Dable. We could make this work. This could be our guy. And you get really excited. Not even 24 hours later, you have the 4th pick in the draft.
I texted you. I was texting with you. I was texting with my other Giants fan friends, and I was like, I can't wait for the offseason of debate. Who should it be? And that's gone. It's gone. Take it from me. Gone.
It's gone. And it stinks because now they either have to trade up, and now your questions with your coach and your GM, I think, become even more clouded because you go from saying, well, maybe because Shane always had this billing. I don't agree with it. I don't think it means anything, but he always had the billing of quarterback evaluation. Guys say he knows how to evaluate the top quarterbacks. He knew how to do it with Josh Allen. He knew how to do it in Buffalo. He knew how to do it last year when you see Daniels, May, but everyone loves those guys. They get picked to the top of the draft. Whatever. Now you have a tougher choice, though, because you're saying they're not even getting the quarterback in the draft this offseason that we feel great about. So next year, the team's probably going to suck again. And then you're going to just fire them. So I think you have a much tougher choice to make when it comes to Dable and Shane, because you could have said, I want to see them with their top choice of quarterback. We have pick of the litter. I want to see them with their guy. Now, if you don't have a couple things go your way next week, you don't even get a top 2 pick, you might not walk out of the draft with a quarterback.
Yeah, the thing is, like, they're going to have a new quarterback. I think they're going to have one of these. I think they're going to get one of them. Now, is it done by trade? Is it here? Let me rephrase this. I thought if they kept Shane and Dable and they had the number 1 overall pick, that there was a chance they would force a quarterback, right? Like we had talked about this. Maybe they're not worth the top overall pick, but they would force one because they needed it, and it would possibly extend their careers with the Giants. Now it kind of feels like if they really like a quarterback, they have to go up and mortgage the future. Now that's not better. That's not a better scenario, but at least we'll know they have conviction in a guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sucks though. It sucks. And I sent a tweet from Gary Myers to you yesterday about how he had said maybe the Giants should just look to go to J.J. McCarthy if they believe if he was in this draft, if he'd be the top pick. Do you swing a trade with the Vikings for J.J. McCarthy if the Vikings extended Darnold 3 or 4 years, whatever it is? That's a possibility as well. And I'm throwing him into this conversation now because they have to extend Sam Darnold. So I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to be the quarterback of the Vikings.
I still think he'll be the backup, though. But you're right. If they can do it, you got to do it. Now, the thing is, why didn't they draft him last year at 6? There's clearly a reason, and I know it could just be, and I think it is, just because they said Malik Neighbors is a star, sure thing, we got to get him. And they say that, and I think that's what it was, but at the same time, if you knew you didn't really have a great quarterback. Shane, I think, liked Jones enough or wanted to stick with Jones enough for another year to not draft one. But you knew that they were questioning their quarterback position last year at the draft. Why didn't you take McCarthy at 6 last season? What was the problem? And I also think, why didn't Atlanta take McCarthy? Why didn't Denver take McCarthy? Because he was the 6th quarterback taken or the 5th quarterback taken? 6th quarterback taken last year in
5th.
Or no, he was 5th.
Knicks
went after him. Yeah, because Minnesota traded up to get McCarthy 1 spot. So either way, though, you know that Denver preferred Knicks to like 3 of the guys. They almost had him too high.
Knicks was a different scenario because it was Peyton, and Peyton loved him.
That wanted him. But it is just a lot of thoughts that I have as to whether or not the Giants would now trade a premium draft pick to get J.J. McCarthy if they're not using one to get him last year.
The one thing is, and I agree, the Neighbors thing, there were just too many really talented players on the board at major positions of need. And, I mean, Neighbors, we don't get to praise the Giants a lot and players on the Giants. I mean, this guy is, I don't even want to hear it anymore. Like, he is Jamar Chase, Jefferson type of talent. Like, in a year or two, like, we're going to be sitting here like, oh, this guy is the third or fourth best wide receiver in the league. Like, that's how good he is. And when you have a chance to get that guy and you're not fully sold on a quarterback, you probably take that you probably take that player. I think it comes down to evaluating McCarthy as a player coming out of the draft this season, because technically, I mean, he hasn't played like these guys. He hasn't played in the NFL like these guys. I think if you value him over Shador and Cam, or in the middle, I think you swing the trade. I do.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. It's tough, man. They're in a tough spot now, though, because right now New England has that first pick. You know that New England is going to be at least fielding calls to trade out of that, because there's not a player like Myles Garrett in this draft where you're saying we really want to get him at 1.
Yeah.
But you could possibly get whoever you want at 4 also. The only concern I have is the price now of number 1, because Cleveland's going to try and trade for it probably. Carolina might try and trade for it. Las Vegas might try and trade for it. The Saints might try and trade for it. Those are all teams that are going to have top 10 picks. So now the price is going to be exponentially higher to get one of those guys because of where the Giants are sitting.
Yeah, and it is, but this isn't the quarterback draft that it was last year. And in regards to the Patriots, like, the Patriots aren't looking for a quarterback. So, like, the price is going to be a little cheaper than it was last year with New England too. Like, I think it sucks. It sucks. As good as it was to see your team win a game and look that dominant, and Drew Lock to have literally an historic performance statistically, like, it sucks.
And you want to see Neighbors do that stuff too. You want to see your rookie stud. You would have loved to see that and see the team lose at the end. But you want to see them do that. This is one of those rare situations where, like, I didn't feel this way about Chase Young, and the Giants worked out not getting Chase Young.
Yeah.
It's just a feeling of, I don't love tanking, but they're definitely in a worse situation, because I don't know if they're firing their coach, their GM. So they're definitely in a worse spot.
You know what, Kevin? I got to say this, and you could call me an idiot. Call me an idiot if I'm wrong here. The team is ravaged by injuries right now. All right? I mean, most of their good players they put on the IR. Okay, there are not many guys playing right now.
Yeah,
I look at this team defensively. I've ripped on Brian Burns. He's actually had a good year. Kayvon is another situation. Lawrence, obviously an all-pro Hall of Fame player. They have pretty good linebackers. The secondary is a work in progress, but this kid Phillips looks really good. And then offensively, you have Neighbors, Tracy, a couple other receivers. They need one more. The offensive line was middle of the pack before Thomas got hurt. I'm not saying they're a playoff team next year if they get a quarterback in the draft. They're definitely not one. But I don't think this is a bottom of the league team anymore. Like, I think, they're bottom 20 probably. But, like, you're intrigued to watch the Giants next season, because I think they have enough players on offense with the new quarterback and enough players on defense to be competitive next year. I do. Like you say, they get a quarterback, they're probably bad next year. They're not making the playoffs, but I don't think they're, you have to fire the coach and GM bad. Like, I think they're a 6-7 win team, depending on how the rest of the offseason goes.
Yeah, I think that they could be a competitive team. I worry about them in the division, because I still don't see a path to being a top 3 team in the division next year.
No,
that's another thing. That's another thing that stinks, is the division's gotten so competitive now. With Washington being the way they are, there's just a tough path to being good in your division. But I don't see them with Shane and Dable. I agree with you that the talent is better than a lot of other situations. Like, I mean, if you look through other situations in that top 10 of the draft, you feel worse. I'm going from 10 to 1. You feel worse about the Saints. You feel worse about, you might feel worse about the Bears, dude. I don't know what to say about them anymore. I really don't know what to say about the Bears anymore. You feel worse about Vegas because Vegas has had talent for a few years and now they're going to have to blow it up. You feel worse about the Jets. You feel worse about the Panthers. I don't feel worse about Jacksonville. I feel worse about Cleveland. I think Tennessee is going to be better than the Giants. And I feel worse about New England, but they have May, so they could flip it quick.
Right. If they fire the coach, then...
Yeah, they have a good offseason. So the Giants, though, you're right. Out of those teams in the top 10, you feel worse about a lot of teams. They're definitely not the worst situation moving forward if they get a quarterback, but they have to get a quarterback. And we've seen that change, right? Like we've seen Houston flip it quick because they got the quarterback. We've seen the Chargers with Herbert. We've seen the Browns even with Mayfield, with now with Daniels. There's rookie quarterbacks and Knicks, and there's rookie quarterbacks everywhere now popping up in year one, way more advanced than past rookie classes. And you know what? With Cam Ward, he's made a ton of starts. He's got a ton of experience. He's the all-time NCAA touchdowns leader, at least for the next day or two he's going to be. And that's a good, outlook for rookie year. I could see him having a good rookie year if you get him.
You watch that game. Like I went back, I didn't watch the game live. I went back and rewatched the game. Like he makes those throws where, the term NFL open and college open. Like he makes those throws where he's only NFL open. He fits that ball into a tight window. He is. Yep. I think he's the guy in the draft. I would not take Shedeur. By the way,
I think Ward's the guy.
You want to talk about Shedeur's cleats or no?
That was crazy.
I was out to dinner and I got set, and you sent it to me. A bunch of other people sent it to me, and I was like, I had seen the video of him talking to. I don't know if you saw the video of him talking to his brother.
Yeah,
and
he was
that. Like, where
I
you're
saw
going
it after
yet?
the tweets, though.
Yeah, so I saw it before. So he basically talking to Shiloh Shedeur is and saying like, oh, where you going? He's like, oh, I know where I'm going. Like I know where I'm going, and he's like, you'll see it in the cleats on Saturday. And he's wearing Giants cleats. I mean, what are we? And
I texted you. First of all, two takeaways from this in retrospect. One is Shedeur says that, and everyone in the world is saying Raiders or Giants. Raiders or Giants. Well, 48 hours later, after he had his worst game of the season, and Ward might have jumped them for the number one pick, the Giants are picking fourth, and the Raiders are picking eighth. So those teams feel out the window unless he's going 4. Maybe he goes 4, Mike. But the other thing is Joe Shane he's got a chance to watch either of these two players, and he's at Miami. Or it wasn't at Miami, but whatever. They're
in the Miami game. Ward. To watch Ward play a half, by the way. Play a half,
which I was fine with. I don't know why everyone's freaking out about that. I'm cool with
some people had money on Miami that game, and some people lost because Miami decided to take their stud Heisman Trophy finalist award-winning quarterback out of the game.
It's tough.
But I digress.
That's karma. Well, Mike, let's go back to this draft order quick. If no one trades in, you said it, it's not a great quarterback class. If no one trades in, if New England says, I really want Travis Hunter, or they really want whoever, Abdul Carter, they're just like, Abdul Carter's best player in the draft. But if you're sitting here and you're just like, we want Carter. All right, so they take Carter 1. Tennessee takes Ward 2. Cleveland doesn't go quarterback 3 because they still have Watson for 2 or 3 more years and they're not willing to commit to putting him on the bench. Then the Giants get Sanders. So it's not over for them to get Sanders if that's who they want. Or Ward if Tennessee takes Sanders. But it does stink for Giants fans. Can we talk for a second here about the Colts? This is a playoff game. This should be treated as a playoff game. You lose, your season's definitely over. I get Anthony Richardson couldn't play. Flacco, I do think, is worse than Richardson, even though Richardson's not very good. But what are you doing defensively to give up 5 touchdowns to Drew Lock alone? Drew Lock alone contributed 5 touchdowns. And you know what? If Neighbors is going to have a good day, fine. Whatever. For everyone else to have a good day, that's embarrassing. That's fireable.
It is. It's not bad. It's not good. That's not what you want.
Chris Ballard is a guy that should definitely get fired at the end of the season.
Well, Ballard is. I've heard your guy Adam Shine talk about this. It's overrated as all hell. Has he even won a playoff game?
He won one with Andrew Luck. And that's the whole thing is, well, you can't blame me for it because Andrew Luck retired almost a decade ago. That's his whole thing is you can't blame me because what did Andrew Luck retire in 2019? It's 5 years now. You're two regimes past that. You have Reich, Steichen, you're 2 regimes past that. You can't keep pinning Andrew Luck's retirement on the franchise's lack of success. You've already drafted a quarterback in the top 5. You've signed 1 million different quarterbacks since then. It's time to just fire this guy. He's 4 games under 500, I think. Career is like 62 and 66 or something.
Would you keep Steichen? Because I think I would keep Shane Steichen.
I would keep him, but if I got a new GM, I'd maybe try and trade him.
Wow.
I think. Listen, dude, we were talking about the Jets here. If Shane Steichen became available, I'd send a day 2 pick for Shane Steichen.
Yeah, I would too.
Or a day 3 pick. If they were just, a new GM comes in and maybe the new GM says, I can get Ben Johnson here. I'm friends with him. I can get Johnson. I can get Vrabel. I want one of those guys. And Irsay says, fine. That's all right. Steichen 2 years into the playoffs or whatever.
See what McAfee said yesterday? You read that whole thing?
I read the whole thing, yeah.
Crazy. It is really interesting how bad of an organization they have been though for a little bit now.
Terrible.
It is.
They got
you almost went to the playoffs.
All their success is because they got Manning and Luck with the first picks, and they didn't even get to the Super Bowl with Luck.
You almost went to the playoffs with Minshew too. Like that's the crazy part. And you were like, "Oh, Steichen, like you got your coach. All right, Richardson's going to come back now." And what a mess. I mean, Richardson had played this season, and he was so bad. You cannot bring him back for the next one.
No, he's terrible.
He cannot be your starting quarterback going into next season. Maybe he's your backup, fine. He cannot be your starting quarterback going into next season.
Compete for it maybe. If Russell Wilson became a free agent, go sign a guy like that. Kirk Cousins, if Rodgers becomes available and he's a free agent, if he gets bought out, those are just the type of names that I'd say, bring them in to compete. Bring in some veterans to compete. You don't want to draft a guy here because you're in the middle of the first, but bring in a guy to compete. But yesterday, Mike, I mean, we both like Steichen. Yesterday is really, really towing the line of where I'd impulsively fire a guy. Like a whole regime.
If he was a defensive guy, yes. They scored 33 points. Like, I get it, he's the head coach, but fire the defensive coordinator before you do that. Yeah, I just an impulse fire of a guy that you had a lot of conviction in last season. Like, oh, he's my coach for the next 5-10 years. Like, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, I'm keeping Steichen, but then I feel like you have to keep Ballard too because it gets into that gray area of once you hire a GM that didn't hire the coach, GM's going to go with the coach the next year if they stink.
Probably keep Ballard.
They're probably going to keep him. If they haven't fired him at this point, they're not going to fire him after a 9-8 season that they missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
Whatever. All right. MVP race, Allen lock it up yesterday?
No, I think it's Lamar. I flipped. It's Lamar.
You think it's going to be Lamar now? I think Allen's game yesterday might have hurt him because he didn't do much. He had 3 touchdowns, 1 rushing on the tush push. But overall, it wasn't this. First of all, you got to beat the Jets.
Good job. Congrats.
So good job beating the Jets, killing the Jets. Yeah. It just doesn't move the needle at all, I don't think, that game for Allen. Whereas Lamar in every stat is better. Literally every stat, Lamar's better.
That's the problem. I
don't want to keep saying stats, but because Burrow would, if it was stats, Burrow would win the MVP.
Yeah, but then you also watch them, and they're both dominant on the field. The numbers are too close. I was all on Allen's doing it himself, and then I'm like, but is he really? Is Jackson not? Jackson is the reason why this team is going. So, yeah, I flipped. I think it's Lamar. I can't sit there and tell you when the numbers look that good and say it's Allen.
I firmly disagree with he has more help than Lamar, or he has less help than Lamar. He's doing it alone argument, because compare Lamar. We're acting like Lamar's got this total world beater offense. His receivers are not good.
No, his receivers aren't great.
The receivers are not better than Buffalo's, I don't think.
Well, I think Allen has made his receivers better. I do believe that.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
Allen has made those receivers a lot better.
Better than Jackson makes his. We could say that.
Yeah.
But I don't think Zay Flowers is anything too special. He's just an average first-round receiver. Bateman was a first-round pick, almost a bust. I mean, they're making him into something that I think he's not as good as.
Yeah.
Andrews and Likely are not far off for me from Kincaid and Knox. I think that they just don't use him as much.
Right.
And James Cook is great.
Yeah. He's not
Derrick
Henry,
Henry's
he's really
better,
good.
And the Henry Hill combo is much better, but James Cook is great, and they both have really good lines.
Yeah, it's Lamar. It's Lamar.
And I don't know. I think Lamar's the best regular season quarterback in the league. We spoke about this with Burrow earlier. What hurts Allen, too, is Allen did not play well against Baltimore, and Lamar is the head-to-head. That was probably his worst game of the year.
Right.
So that hurts him. But Lamar he just might be the best regular season quarterback in the league. It just might be the reality.
He's going to lock up a Hall of Fame. He's going to lock up a gold jacket with an MVP here, his third one. I mean, if he hasn't already, he's the greatest rushing quarterback of all time. He's remarkable. Every week you get to watch him and you're like, this is special. And he gets to play again. They're 17.5-point favorites against the Browns on Saturday afternoon. That'll be fascinating to watch. I don't know what else to say on it. I love Allen, and he'll get one, but it's not this year.
I think the problem now is with this new guard, only 2 starting quarterbacks in the AFC have made a Super Bowl, if I'm correct, and excluding Aaron Rodgers. So Burrow and Mahomes are the only guys out of that group, and how much does an MVP even matter anymore to the public? What does an MVP do for Allen when he gets bounced at Arrowhead again? What does it do for Lamar when he gets bounced in Buffalo in round 2? It doesn't do much.
Oh, by the way, we haven't spoke since then. The Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl, right? Like we're
definitely.
Like, no,
we didn't
like,
talk about any of the Christmas games.
No
here,
doubt. No doubt.
I mean, like Buffalo is good, but I don't know. At Arrowhead, man, it's just the Chiefs. It's the Chiefs.
The Chiefs are they're not only going to the Super Bowl, they're going to win it too. They're going to win it again. They're going to go 3 straight.
They are. I'm worried about Buffalo in the first round. I'm going to be honest with you. I touched on it earlier. Even if they play Denver,
not against Denver.
I'm a little concerned about them because remember that Bengals-Bills game a year ago or 2 years ago in the playoffs? The Bengals just killed them.
Yeah, but the Bengals was that the year the Bengals went to the Super Bowl? No, they lost.
It's the year after.
Yeah, but they were still a good team that year. Like that was
2 years later. The year after. 2 years later.
It was the year after.
Year after.
No,
but the Bengals were a good team. But I just worry about this end of the schedule for Buffalo transitioning to the first round of the playoffs. I'm sure they'll be ready and everything, but the competition, I think they're going to get punched in the mouth in the first quarter of that game, at least.
You want to tell me they struggle with Baltimore? Maybe they lose to Baltimore in that second round. Fine.
Yeah.
But Denver, a young team, rookie quarterback. Yeah, they got a great coach, but rookie quarterback, younger team. I don't know. I think
could just be a Buffalo hater. I could be a hater.
Buffalo might struggle in that first round off. They're going to rest their players. They're going to have their own bye, but I don't know. I trust Buffalo enough to win that game. I don't trust them to go to Arrowhead and win. I did all year.
No.
And I'm watching the Chiefs, and it's just like it's the same thing year in and year out. It's the same thing.
It is. You're right. All right. So a week from today, unless do you have anything else you want to talk about from this week's games?
No, I'm good here.
So a week from today is the last game of the season. We know that. Or a week from last night. So a week from today is Black Monday in the NFL.
Yep.
Where everybody's getting fired and some guys go Sunday night.
Yep.
How many jobs open here?
All right, let me look at the teams.
Jets, Saints, obviously open already.
Jets, Saints open already.
Bears open already.
The Raiders are open.
Jaguars?
The Jaguars are open.
So that's 5. Giants?
Nobody else. Giants doesn't open.
Patriots?
Official prediction. Giants don't open.
Okay, Patriots?
Doesn't open. Doesn't open.
Any wild card teams in there like Cleveland?
No.
Indianapolis, we don't think is going to open.
No, I don't think anybody does. I think McCarthy absolutely stays. He deserves it. He's a good coach. Somebody convinced me on it.
Is total smoke stuff. I don't know what that's all
Unless
about.
he's traded, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't know why they would do that.
Does Taylor get fired?
No. They're too cheap. Ownership. They won't do it.
They
kept Marvin Lewis for 15 years. This guy's staying.
I would fire Mayo. I would fire Mayo.
But do you think he will?
No.
I don't think
keep him one more year.
I think Van Pelt is going to get fired, the offensive coordinator.
He's stubborn. Kraft is stubborn. This is the guy he chose years ago to replace Belichick. He's going to give him one more year.
Yeah. All right. So we're only saying 5 jobs open.
5 jobs open. Giants,
Jets,
stay.
Jags, Bears, Raiders, Saints.
Giants are the closest one.
All right. Do you have any predictions here on coaches who go there?
Not at the moment. No. I think Johnson takes the Bears job.
Okay. And then everything else.
Jags, I couldn't tell you. Maybe Cohen to the Jags.
That's a good one. I like that.
I like Cohen to the Jags. I think Glenn gets one of the Jets or the Saints.
Okay. Let's give him the Saints job. No one wants the Jets job.
I think the Jets will hire Flores.
And then Raiders, Rabel.
Raiders, Rabel. Makes sense. He'll get full control there too.
All right, we'll see how we look on Monday.
3 weeks.
Today. We'll see how we look.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but then on who gets fired, and I think there will be one surprise. I feel like there's one surprise up the sleeve, and I agree with you. It's going to be these 5 teams. I think Giants stay. I think Patriots stay. One of them would be a surprise to me. They could be the surprise. Yeah. So we'll see. Anything else today, Mike?
I got nothing. I'm very excited for the playoffs. We'll be talking about playoff matchups next week, and I'm super pumped for that.
One more thing I did want to talk about real quick.
Yeah, go.
Coach of the year. Good group of candidates. O'Connell, Quinn, Peyton. If they get in the playoffs, it's O'Connell though, right?
O'Connell.
Okay.
I'm all Vikings.
I am too. Well, they might get the 1 seed here after people thought that's a 5-6 win team. So do you think, if you had a second vote, who would it be? Quinn, Peyton, who else was I? Oh, Harbaugh.
I would go Peyton.
Peyton. Yeah, okay, me too. All right, cool.
I think Peyton's done a great job.
Assuming they win next week.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. Sunday recap, week 17. Burrows coming soon. We'll have a new one for you.
What are we doing tomorrow?
Do you want to do tomorrow? Tomorrow, I can't do tomorrow. I have Isles game at 1.
Wednesday's New Year's Day.
I don't care if you want to do it, unless you're going to be late in the morning. We'll figure it out. We Wednesday or Thursday or something. All right, cool. Good stuff. In the books, week 17, 1 week left till playoffs. We will see you then. Thanks for watching all year. We look forward to having you next week. We will be on 7:30 Sunday, final Sunday of the season, regular season. We will be there. So join us, 7:30 Sunday, week 18, right before Lions, Vikings. We'll preview that, go through everything else, go through the playoff scenarios and everyone that clinched, everyone that didn't, and any breaking news, coach firings, GM firings there. Thanks for watching all year. We'll see you next